Welcome everyone, this is Judge Lackman. I would like to share in this particular video a discussion about Reiki and some of the myths or misconceptions and limiting belief systems that people have around this subject. Reiki is a form of spiritual energy healing, and the word Reiki is a Japanese word. So this particular tradition of healing with energy originated in Japan, and Reiki would translate approximately into English to mean the universal or the divine life force energy. This is a concept that's not unique to the Reiki tradition. It's really a universal kind of concept. You'll find this idea that there's a spiritual energy source, a universal energy source that gives us our life energy. In Chinese medicine, they work with the concept of qi, and this is the Japanese word that refers to the same concept. So ki and Reiki would be the same as qi, such as qigong or tai chi. If we consider that we're spiritual beings, in a sense we're all made of this energy. It's sort of the essence of who we are. So we're all part of, or an expression of, universal energy and universal consciousness. So from that perspective, we're all part of, or we're all expressions of the source, the divine creator of God, however you wish to label, to name, or perceive that creative source. Now in the Reiki tradition from Japan, we have a founder of this tradition named Mikao Usui. You'll often see Reiki referred to as Usui Reiki or traditional Japanese Reiki, and that's referring to the origins of the particular tradition that we're discussing or talking about here. So Usui lived in Japan. His era there was from 1865 to 1926, his birth and death years. It was actually later in his life when he began to practice this form of spiritual healing. So he was teaching other people this Reiki method, per se, in the 1920s. So at this point in time, Reiki is approximately a century old. However, healing with universal spiritual life force energy is timeless. As long as there are spiritual beings that are tapped into the source of their existence, this energy is always there, it's always flowing. We all have a spiritual energy field. We all, in a way, are that energy field, even more so than we are our physical identity here. This physical form is more temporary, more limited, whereas our energetic, our spiritual existence is more unlimited. So if we look at the Reiki tradition, what is taught as Reiki practice, Reiki healing methods, we find there are a variety of specific details that are presented, which many people become very kind of rigidly attached to, not seeing those particular practices or exercises in a broader context. Part of the Reiki tradition is what's referred to as a Reiki attunement, and the attunement is a very brief sort of ritual that you could look at as an initiation into the Reiki tradition and lineage, from student to master, going all the way back to Usui. And also, in a practical sense, it's designed to help open up the energy channels of the Reiki student and to connect the Reiki student with Reiki symbols that are taught as part of the Reiki tradition. Now, there are many different traditions of spiritual energy healing, and they don't use these same symbols or the same attunement that the Japanese Reiki tradition uses. And they're all very much effective for the purpose of facilitating healing. So I would say the way I perceive this is that in different cultures and different communities or parts of the world, people might use different rituals, different imagery, different particular techniques to enhance their awareness of this energy and their ability to feel, to sense, to focus that energy, and to be a channel or vessel for the divine energy to flow through them for the purpose of healing. So you'll find some different styles of spiritual healing depending on which culture you might visit, which particular religion or spiritual tradition you may interact with. However, the energy itself and the consciousness, the spiritual essence itself, is truly universal, truly coming from a higher source that really transcends our human concepts, our human language, our human use of symbols, of rituals, and so on. So if we become a little too much attached to a particular doctrine or dogma, we're actually limiting ourselves, we're limiting our capacity to receive and work with this type of energy. So when people ask me about the Reiki symbols and how important and necessary they are, I point out that in terms of actually doing a healing session, of working with spiritual energy for healing, they're not really necessary at all. If you want to study Reiki and be a Reiki practitioner, to use that label, or to be a Reiki master using that label, then you would want to really be working with symbols to some extent at least, or at least to have learned them, so that you can honestly claim you are part of that particular healing tradition. But to be effective as a healer per se, it's not necessary to actually use those. Each of the symbols has a particular meaning or intention that it represents. That's what a symbol really is. If you think of language, in our languages we have symbols that represent some concept, some idea, some item that we wish to refer to. So when you hear the word apple, you may think of an Apple computer, or you might think of an apple fruit. And so there, that symbolism of the word apple activates that concept or image in your mind. So we can use symbols in the healing arts to help give the mind a shortcut to activate a particular idea or intention. In the Reiki tradition, we have a symbol that represents power, or turning on the energy flow. So when a Reiki practitioner who has learned that symbol sees or hears that symbol, that for them is a tool to bring about the awareness of that energy flow. You could think of it kind of like a permission slip within one's particular mental constructs and belief systems. If someone were a Buddhist, the image of a Buddha might stimulate some idea or concept, some state of being for that person. With a Christian, it could be Jesus or a cross. so we can understand how our own existing belief systems and mental constructs present like a filter for how we relate to different types of practices, different modalities we might learn. In the Reiki tradition, there are also positions for placing the hands that are taught. So our hands are tools or instruments for channeling energy, for directing it. And as the energy comes through the hand, it's radiating, it's pulsating, that energy is being shared and connecting with the energy field of whoever's receiving that healing session. It's often taught that there are specific hand positions to work on specific parts of the body, specific energy centers or chakras, and that you need to follow those hand positions rather strictly in order to be properly practicing Reiki or doing healing work. In my personal understanding and experience, our hands can be in a real variety of positions, not just ones that are taught in a class or a book. The energy field is very dynamic. Things are never exactly the same. Things are always in flux. And in any given moment, there might be a different optimal position for your hands to help facilitate a healing shift or healing process. So it's helpful to be more intuitive, more open to your expanded senses, to just feel and perceive how the hands may be positioned at a given moment, rather than to feel limited or constricted by what you've been shown in a class or read in a book. So that's another area where people can often have some limiting beliefs about Reiki, about how spiritual healing is supposed to be practiced. I really encourage everyone to kind of cross-reference the things they learn and study with their own insights, their own intuition, their own experiences. And also, when you've studied one particular healing method or one particular spiritual practice, to not feel too limited by that or too loyal to that particular tradition or teaching, to consider that there's more to learn and understand from other resources, from other traditions, from other sources perhaps, and having that wider reference point to explore and examine things from can help us be more complete or holistic in a sense in our ability to connect to something beyond ourselves, let's say. For those that are interested in Reiki and other forms of holistic healing and spirituality, metaphysics, and understanding the nature of energy and consciousness, I encourage you to continue your exploration. I provide a variety of resources on my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. And you can also find out more about the particular healing practices that I facilitate and events that I may be sharing in the coming days, months, years, etc. So for now, I'd like to thank you for taking your time to view this, and I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.